On the left side of the old York Times, investors rush to beat threat of higher taxes. Let's think about that. Investors rush to beat threat of higher taxes. So what's the point? You mean they're making a mistake by not wanting to give the government all of their income? Investors rush to beat threat of higher taxes. Maneuvers aim to cash in investments under lower rates by Nathaniel Popper and Nelson D. Schwartz of the old York Times. So what are they implying? That they shouldn't beat the threat of higher taxes? They should just turn it over to Obama-Stein? Is that what they should say? Just turn all your money over to Obama-Stein? Now, we have a screaming, funny soundbite that I may as well do right now, which is Nancy Pelosi, one of the richest women in the world, who has made, her fortune has gone up about tenfold since she joined the government, maybe 100-fold. I don't really know. And she, of course, is for the poor. She's let us say a Robin Hood. She's a Robin Hoodette, and she says that she will not compromise on taxing the rich. What I don't understand about all these rich libs is why don't they just give all their money to the Democrats, since that's what they want to do. A character by the name of Paul Krugman, who I never heard of, he's some academic crank who works for the New York Times, says that we should be taxed at 91% of our income. 91%. He said, let's go back to the 50s and bring back the 91% tax rate, says this unknown individual. I don't know who he is. He's posing with a beard and a kitten, the Twinkie Manifesto in the New York Times. And he goes back to the 50s and he tries to argue how much more fair things were in the 1950s when people were paying a 91% tax. Well, isn't it interesting, and isn't it ironic, to use a liberal phrase, they love the word ironic, isn't it ironic that suddenly the Bolsheviks are harking back to the 1950s? Because whenever I hark back to the 1950s, it's about the fact that my mother could walk to the corner store without being raped or molested because the streets were safer, because the police had more powers, and the criminals were afraid to come into our neighborhood. But they would then call me a name if I said that. But when he harks back to the 50s, it's somehow a good thing. So let's say we've neutralized each other's nostalgia for the moment. What he's not talking about in the 1950s, when there was a high-tax, strong union decade, is quite simple. We had just won World War II. What was different in the 1950s? Well, there was an awful lot of differences. For one, we had a huge manufacturing base in America. For one, we were, by and large, energy independent in the United States of America. We were drilling oil. We had factories producing things. And consequently, it was a different nation. There's another big difference. The country was not flooded with illegal aliens sucking our systems dry. We didn't have to educate foreigners, non-citizens who didn't speak English. If they came here, they had to learn English to go to our schools. We didn't have to learn Spanish to teach them in our English-speaking schools. So, you see, this is what I mean about everything is upside down. Liberalism is a mental disorder, as I pointed out 5 books ago. And it's the only thing that explains all of their insanities. They hearken back to the 50s, calling for 91% tax rate, saying it was a great time because everything was unionized, and they have no conception of what else was going on in the country at that time.